for children vanished. For families shattered. One quiet suburban county, paralyzed by a phantom who stalked its streets for just 13 months. This is the chilling, unsolved story of the Oakland County child killer, a predator who earned the terrifying nickname, the Babysitter. Welcome back to Unsolved Echoes. Today, we're delving into one of America's most haunting and frustrating cold cases. Between 1976 and 1977, the affluent suburbs of Oakland County, Michigan, became a hunting ground. Life was idyllic. The kind of place where kids played outside until the streetlights came on and front doors were left unlocked. But that sense of security was about to be obliterated. It all began on a cold February day in 1976. 12-year-old Mark Stebbins was grounded. He told his mother he was just going down to the American Legion Hall to wait for a friend and would be right back. He never returned. His family's frantic search ended in the worst way imaginable. 4 days later, Mark's body was discovered in a snowbank, neatly laid out, his clothes carefully folded beside him. The community was in shock, but they hoped this was a tragic, isolated incident. They were wrong. Just 10 months later, on December 22nd, 1976, 12-year-old Jill Robinson had a fight with her mother. She stormed out of her home and was last seen at a local hobby shop. Christmas came and went, with a cloud of dread hanging over her family. 4 days after she disappeared, her body was found by the side of an interstate, less than a mile from a police headquarters. Like Mark, she had been held captive, cleaned, and her body displayed. The pattern was emerging, and a horrifying realization began to dawn on parents and police alike. There was a serial predator in their midst. Panic set in. Curfews were established. Children were forbidden from walking to school alone. The once trusting community was now gripped by suspicion. Every stranger was a potential threat. Police were overwhelmed, forming a massive task force to hunt down the person they were now calling the Babysitter. A name born from the twisted, almost caring way the victims were treated after their deaths. On March 1st, 1977, the killer struck again. 10-year-old Christine Mihalik left her home to walk to a nearby convenience store to buy a magazine. It was a short, familiar walk she'd made countless times, but this time she vanished into thin air. Her disappearance triggered one of the largest manhunts in Michigan's history. For 19 agonizing days, the community held its breath, praying for her safe return. But the outcome was tragically the same. Christine's body was found in a ditch, arranged with the same chilling neatness as the others. By now, Oakland County was a community under siege. Parents organized patrols, escorting children to and from school. The FBI was called in, and the investigation ballooned, with thousands of tips pouring in. But the killer remained a ghost, always one step ahead. Just 3 weeks after Christine's body was found, the final victim was taken. 11-year-old Timothy King asked his father for money to buy candy. He left his home, skateboard in hand, and headed to the local drugstore. He never made it home for dinner. Timothy's father, a man respected in the community, made a desperate, public plea on television, begging for his son's return. "Just let him call," he pleaded. "I don't know what else to say. I just want my son back." The killer's response was unimaginably cruel. 6 days later, Timothy's body was discovered in a shallow grave. He had been held for nearly a week. The coroner noted something particularly disturbing. Timothy's last meal had been fried chicken, something his family knew he had eaten after he was abducted. This meant the killer had fed him, cared for him in some twisted way, before ending his life. The predator wasn't just a killer. They were a caretaker, a babysitter. And then, silence. After Timothy King's murder in March of 1977, the killings stopped as abruptly as they had begun. The task force followed up on over 18,000 tips. They interviewed hundreds of suspects. They investigated leads that took them down countless dead ends. But the identity of the Oakland County child killer remained a mystery. Over the decades, theories have swirled. Was it a lone predator or a group? One prominent theory pointed to a wealthy, powerful circle of individuals in the area, suggesting a cover-up that reached the highest levels. This theory gained traction when a man came forward, claiming he had been a victim of this group as a child and knew the identities of some of the perpetrators. His story was compelling, but ultimately, it couldn't be definitively proven in a court of law. Other theories focused on known criminals of the era. Infamous serial killers operating in other parts of the country were looked at, but none could be concretely tied to the specific, ritualistic nature of the Oakland County murders. The police files grew thick with speculation, but thin on evidence. In the 2010s, there was a glimmer of hope. Advances in DNA technology allowed investigators to re-examine evidence from the crime scenes. A hair found on Christine Mihelik's body and another on Timothy King's body were analyzed. The results were both a breakthrough and a new puzzle. The two hairs came from the same unknown person, scientifically linking at least two of the murders for the first time. But when that DNA profile was run through national databases, there was no match. The killer's DNA was on file, but their identity was still a secret. Another lead emerged from a car. A vehicle believed to have been seen near one of the abduction sites was tested, and DNA from two different individuals was found. One of those DNA profiles matched a known associate of a major suspect who had been on the police radar since the 70s. This seemed like a monumental break. However, the suspect himself had passed away years earlier, and while the circumstantial evidence was strong, it wasn't enough to posthumously declare him the killer beyond all doubt. The case officially remains open. For nearly 50 years, families have lived without answers. A community has carried the scar of a time when innocence was stolen. The Oakland County child killer case is a powerful, painful reminder that evil can surface in the most unexpected places and then vanish without a trace. It is a story of a monster who treated his victims like his own children before leaving them by the side of the road. A chilling paradox that has baffled investigators for generations. Who was this person? Why did they stop? Are they still out there, living a normal life, holding on to their dark secret? These are the questions that continue to haunt Oakland County. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of America's most chilling unsolved mysteries. The memory of Mark, Gil, Christine, and Timothy deserves to be kept alive, in the hope that one day, the truth will finally surface. If you found the story compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to Unsolved Echoes for more investigations into the unknown. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.